Hello, friend. Welcome to Science for Sleep. Tonight, we are spending time with one of the most familiar birds in North America, the American robin. Whether you have returned tonight or are discovering this channel for the first time, this is a quiet place to slow down, learn something gentle, and allow the day to slowly fade. You may picture it standing on a lawn, its orange breast bright against the grass, taking several quick steps before stopping as still as a small statue. Then the head tilts. The yellow bill points toward the ground. A moment later, the bird pulls an earthworm from the soil. This scene is so common that it can make the robin seem simple. Yet the bird on the lawn is only one version of the animal. An adult American robin is about 20 to 28 centimeters long, with a wingspan of roughly 31 to 40 centimeters. Most adults weigh between 77 and 85 grams, close to the weight of a small apple. That makes the robin large for a songbird, and it is the largest thrush found across much of North America. A thrush is a member of a bird family known for rounded bodies, strong legs, clear songs, and a habit of searching for food on or near the ground. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you're welcome to subscribe, and if it feels natural, to leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find this calm corner of science, one sleepy listener at a time. The robin's scientific name is Turdus migratorius. The second part of that name refers to migration, but not every robin makes the same journey. Some travel thousands of kilometers between summer and winter. Others move only a short distance. Some remain in the same city or region all year, changing their food and daily routine instead of crossing the continent. The lawns where people usually notice robins are useful because short grass gives the birds a clear view of the ground. Their long legs can move easily through it, and damp soil often brings worms and other small animals closer to the surface. But lawns are only a small part of robin habitat. American robins also feed and nest in city parks, farms, orchards, open forests, mountain valleys, burned woodlands, and the edges of northern tundra. They can breed in Alaska and northern Canada, where summer days become very long. They also remain through winter in many parts of southern Canada and the United States, sometimes gathering in wooded areas where berries are more important than worms. A robin's year is built from changes like these. In spring, males sing before sunrise and defend breeding ground from other males. Females search for a branch, ledge, beam, or sheltered corner strong enough to support a nest. They shape grass, roots, and mud into a cup that may hold 3 to 5 blue eggs. After the chicks hatch, both parents carry food to the nest again and again. In less than 2 weeks, nearly bare hatchlings grow feathers, open their eyes, and become large enough to leave the nest. By late summer, the careful spacing of breeding pairs begins to disappear. Robins gather into flocks. Their diet shifts toward cherries, dogwood fruit, juniper berries, crab apples, and other foods that can remain available after the ground hardens. Some winter roosts hold thousands of birds. A few studied gatherings have grown far larger, turning many small bodies into a moving pattern that can be detected by weather radar near dawn. All of this belongs to the same animal that pauses beside a driveway or searches under a backyard tree. Its familiar shape hides a life that stretches from a few centimeters of soil to roots crossing much of a continent. Even the name robin hides part of the story. The American robin was named because its orange breast reminded European settlers of another bird they already knew. But the two birds are not close relatives. The North American bird is a true thrush, and that older family connection can be seen in its body, heard in its song, and found in the spotted feathers it wears when young. The first step toward understanding the robin is to look past the name and see the bird that has been there all along. That familiar name began with a resemblance noticed by people crossing the Atlantic. English-speaking settlers arriving in North America saw a bird with a warm orange breast and were reminded of the European robin they already knew. The comparison was understandable. Both birds often appear close to homes and gardens, and each carries a patch of reddish color across the chest. The name followed the color. The biology followed a very different path. The European robin is a small, round bird with a thin bill, a bright face and breast, and a body usually measuring about 12 to 14 centimeters long. Its scientific name is Ornithocus rubecula. It belongs to a bird family called Muscicapidae, a group that includes many Old World flycatchers. The American robin is much larger. It can reach more than twice the European bird's weight and stands higher on noticeably longer legs. Its scientific name is Turdus migratorius, and it belongs to the family Turdidae. Turdidae is the thrush family. This family includes birds such as the wood thrush of eastern North American forests, the varied thrush of the Pacific Northwest, and the common blackbird of Europe. Several of these birds share a rounded body, strong legs, rich whistled songs, and a habit of searching through soil or leaf litter. The American robin fits comfortably among them. A shared common name can make two animals seem closely connected even when their nearest relatives are found elsewhere. Common names grow through language, travel, appearance, and local history. People often name a new animal by comparing it with something familiar. Scientific classification asks a different kind of question. It looks for inherited structures, behavior, development, and shared ancestry. Modern classification also uses genetic material, especially DNA, to compare sections of the biological code passed from parents to young. These comparisons place the American robin firmly among the true thrushes. The European robin sits on another branch of the songbird family tree. Their orange breast developed within separate evolutionary histories. This kind of resemblance can appear when different animals face similar pressures or when a useful color pattern arises more than once. The warm breast color may help individuals recognize members of their own species, especially during territorial encounters. Its exact role can vary, and the color alone says little about close ancestry. The formal scientific history of the American robin reaches back to 1766. That year, the Swedish naturalist Carl Linnaeus included the species in the 12th edition of his large classification work, Systema Naturae. Linnaeus helped establish the two-part naming system still used in biology. The first word identifies the genus, a group of closely related species. The second identifies the individual species within that group. In Turdus migratorius, the word turdus means thrush. The word migratorius refers to migration or seasonal movement. The name can be understood as the migratory thrush. That description fits many populations, especially those breeding across Alaska and northern Canada. Some travel far south when cold weather reduces access to ground prey. Others make shorter movements between breeding lawns and winter fruiting forests, Robins living in milder regions may remain nearby throughout the year. The name captures a real tendency, while allowing room for the species' flexible behavior. Its thrush identity becomes clearer when the bird is watched for more than a few moments. The body is broad through the chest and carried above the ground on long, slender legs. The bird runs across open soil or short grass, then stops with its head raised. Its bill is narrow enough to seize an earthworm and pointed enough to pick small insects from leaves. The song carries the clear, rounded whistle quality heard in many members of the thrush family. Young robins provide another visible clue. Freshly fledged birds have dark spots scattered across their pale orange breasts. Spotted young are common among thrushes, including species whose adults later become plain below. The markings fade as the juvenile feathers are replaced, leaving the cleaner breast pattern recognized in adults. Seen through this larger family connection, the American robin becomes more than a familiar orange bird given a borrowed name. Its shape, early plumage, voice, and movements all carry the history of a ground-feeding thrush. Those long legs and sudden upright pauses are the working parts of a body designed to divide its day between the soil and the air. The shape of a robin becomes easiest to understand from the ground upward. Its legs are long for a songbird of its size, lifting the rounded body above short grass, fallen leaves, and bare soil. That raised position gives the head a clearer view, while the feet carry the bird quickly across open ground. Many small feeder birds move mainly by hopping. A robin often runs. It takes several fast steps, stops without warning, and holds nearly still. The pattern may repeat every few seconds as the bird crosses a lawn. Each short run carries it into a fresh patch of ground. During the pause, its eyes and ears examine that patch for prey, nearby movement, or approaching danger. A stable head is especially useful during this search. The robin can bring its gaze to rest and inspect tiny changes in the surface below. A shifting blade of grass or a small opening in damp soil may reveal where food is hiding. Its upright posture also keeps the head high enough to watch for cats, hawks, people, and other robins. Among North American thrushes, the American robin is the largest. Its body looks broad through the chest, with a fairly long tail extending behind it. The tail helps with balance during sudden stops and quick turns. After landing on a branch or lawn, a robin may flick the tail downward several times. This small motion is one of the species' familiar habits when it has just arrived and is checking its surroundings. The feet support more than walking. Strong toes grip branches, hold the bird steady during a backward pull on an earthworm, and absorb the force of landing. When grass grows too high for easy running, the robin changes its movement. It may hop between openings or fly just above the vegetation, with slow, powerful wing beats, covering a short distance before dropping into another clear patch. The bill completes the ground-feeding design. It is slender and pointed, compared with the deep, thick bill a finch uses to crack hard seeds. A robin can push its bill into soft soil, close it around a slippery earthworm, or pick a caterpillar from a leaf. Small cherries and juniper berries can be grasped and swallowed whole. This range allows the bird to feed on animal prey during warm months and rely more heavily on fruit when the ground becomes dry, frozen, or covered by snow. Several parts of the body cooperate during a worm pull. The bill closes around the worm as the legs brace the bird against the ground. A robin may lean backward while keeping its feet planted, using its weight to draw the prey from the soil. Its long legs create room for that pulling motion and help maintain balance while the worm resists below the surface. Ground feeding occupies much of the robin's visible day, though its body remains fully capable in the air. Broad wings produce strong strokes that carry the bird away in a direct path. Robins are fast, straight flyers, especially when crossing open ground or moving between feeding places and nighttime shelter. Several firm wing beats build speed. The long tail helps guide changes in direction before landing. That ability matters across every scale of the robin's life. A bird may rise only a few meters from a lawn to a nest branch. Later in the year, the same body can travel between woodlots, follow scattered fruit crops, or move hundreds and sometimes thousands of kilometers with the changing season. Its time on the ground and its strength in the air come from one coordinated design. Long legs improve movement and visibility among low plants. A pointed bill gives the robin access to many kinds of food. Muscles inside the rounded chest power direct flight, while the tail steadies landings and sudden turns. The familiar runs and abrupt pauses belong to this larger physical system. So do the backward pull on a worm and the quick departure toward a distant tree. Together, these movements reveal a bird adapted to work along the boundary between soil and sky. That framework remains much the same from one adult robin to another. The feathers covering it are far more changeable, carrying visible clues about age, sex, region, and the bird's early life as a spotted young thrush. Across that working frame, the feathers create the robin people recognize from a distance. The back is mostly grey-brown, while the chest and upper belly carry the warm orange color that gave the bird its common name. The shade can range from pale orange to a deeper brick red. Below the orange area, the lower belly becomes whitish. White feathers also show beneath the tail, especially when the bird lifts off, lands, or bends forward on the ground. The head is usually darker than the back. On many adult males, it can appear nearly black in bright light. The throat is lighter and crossed by thin dark streaks. A narrow yellow bill projects from the face, often with a slightly darker tip. Around each eye sits a broken circle of small white markings. These pale arcs do not form the smooth, complete eye ring seen in some other songbirds. They look more like short white marks placed above and below the eye. The adult pattern seems simple at first, but no single feature tells the whole story. Male robins usually have darker heads and stronger contrast between the head, back, and breast. Females often appear softer in color, with a grayer head and paler orange below. These differences are averages. A brightly colored female may look similar to a duller male. Feather wear can reduce contrast as the months pass. Light also changes the impression. A robin standing in deep shade may appear brown and muted. The same bird can look much warmer when direct morning sunlight reaches the breast. Regional differences make identification by color even less certain. Robins breeding along parts of Atlantic Canada can be especially dark. Some have blackish feathers across the upper back and neck, creating a strong contrast with the orange breast. Farther west, many populations average paler. Their upper parts may appear lighter grey-brown, and the orange below can be less intense. Western birds also tend to show less white at the outer corners of the tail. Some have almost none of the white tail markings that are easier to notice in many eastern robins. These patterns blend gradually across the continent. There is no single border where every dark robin ends and every pale robin begins. Inherited traits mix as populations meet, and individual variation remains present within each region. Age produces an even greater change. A robin that has recently left the nest looks very different from a clean-breasted adult. Dark spots cover the young bird's chest. Pale marks and mottled feathers appear across the back and shoulders. The tail is shorter. The feathers may look loose around the body, and the orange breast has not yet become a broad, unbroken patch. This spotted pattern connects the young robin with the wider thrush family. Juvenile wood thrushes, hermit thrushes, and several other relatives also carry spots or scales across their early plumage. The markings are part of a normal stage of development. As the young robin grows, it begins replacing those first feathers through molt. Molt is the regular process of shedding old feathers and growing new ones. The spotted juvenile feathers gradually give way to the smoother grey-brown back and more even orange breast of the adult pattern. Fresh feathers can look darker and more sharply marked. Months of sunlight, rain, dust, and rubbing against vegetation slowly wear their edges. A robin observed in late summer may therefore look less crisp than the same individual soon after growing a newer set of feathers. Color also depends on the structure of each feather and the pigments placed inside it while it grows. Once a feather is complete, its basic color cannot be repaired. Wear continues until that feather is replaced during a later molt. The robin's appearance is therefore a record of several influences working together. Age determines whether the breast is spotted. Sex affects average darkness and contrast. Geography shifts the usual shades across different populations. Season and feather wear soften the surface over time. A bird that seems easy to label may carry several of these clues at once. Careful observation works best when the full pattern is considered, including the bill, back, throat, belly, tail, and the small white marks around the eyes. Those broken arcs frame the sensory organs involved in one of the robin's most familiar actions. When the bird stops on a lawn and turns its head toward the soil, the eye is already helping measure a world hidden beneath the grass. The eye does much of its work during the robin's sudden pauses. After several quick steps, the bird freezes and turns its head until one side of the face points toward the grass. From a human angle, the pose can look like listening. The robin appears to lower one ear toward the soil, waiting for an earthworm to make a sound below. That explanation has circulated for generations, though the real sensory process is more flexible. A robin's eyes sit toward the sides of its head, giving it a wide view of the ground and the surrounding area. Turning the head can bring one eye into a better position for examining a small patch of soil. The movement may also help the bird judge the direction of a faint sound. Sight and hearing can work together, with one sense becoming more useful when the other has less information. Scientists began testing this familiar behavior many decades ago. In 1965, researchers studied how robins found earthworms under controlled conditions. The birds could still catch visible worms when sound and smell cues had been reduced or disrupted. Those results supported the idea that vision was the main hunting sense. A robin could watch a worm move across the surface, notice part of its body near a burrow, or detect soil disturbed by movement below. For many years, the tilted head was therefore explained mostly as a visual adjustment. Later experiments showed that hearing deserved a place in the explanation. In 1997, researchers worked with 4 captive American robins inside a controlled aviary. An aviary is a large enclosed space where birds can move and behave while conditions are carefully changed. The researchers offered live mealworms and dead mealworms beneath material that prevented the birds from seeing the prey directly. Mealworms are the larvae of darkling beetles. They move by bending and pressing their segmented bodies against the material around them. The robins found buried living prey even when no visible movement appeared on the surface. Smell also seemed unable to explain the result. The experimenters blocked or weakened scent information, yet the birds continued searching successfully. Direct vibrations moving through the floor or soil were tested as well. The robins still found prey when those vibration cues were separated from the birds. Sound produced a clearer difference. When white noise filled the aviary, the robins made fewer attempts to capture the hidden mealworms and succeeded less often. White noise contains many sound frequencies at once, creating a steady, rushing sound that can cover quieter noises. The results suggested that the robins had been hearing the live mealworms move beneath the surface. A dead mealworm produced no useful movement sound. A living one created tiny scratches and rustles as its body pressed against the surrounding material. The birds appeared able to use those faint noises to narrow down a location. This does not give every tilted head one fixed meaning. A worm exposed on damp grass offers strong visual information. Disturbed soil around a burrow may also be easier to see than to hear. Prey hidden beneath leaves or loose earth can make sound more valuable. Head movement may place one eye's sharpest area toward a visible target, while also helping the ears compare sound arriving from slightly different directions. The robin can adjust according to the information available in that moment. Researchers therefore expect vision to be preferred when clear visual cues are present. Hearing can support the search when living prey remains concealed. The exact share handled by each sense on a natural lawn is difficult to measure. Wind moves grass and creates background noise. Rain changes the sound of the ground. Nearby insects, traffic, and other birds add more signals. Soil depth and moisture can alter how far a small scratching sound travels. A controlled aviary can separate these factors one at a time, while a wild robin receives them together. The pause on the lawn is therefore an active part of the hunt. During those few still seconds, the bird may inspect a small opening in the turf, compare faint sounds from below, and keep watch for danger at the edge of its vision. Once the likely position is narrowed to a patch only a few centimeters wide, the bill can strike. Detection brings the robin to the right place. The prey may still be deep enough to resist, gripping the walls of its burrow while the bird begins to pull. The bill strikes quickly and closes around the exposed part of the worm. At once, the robin plants its feet, lifts its head, and leans backward. Its legs provide the force needed to hold position, while the prey remains partly buried. A single smooth pull may be enough when the soil is loose. In firmer ground, the robin often uses several short tugs. Each tug changes the angle slightly and loosens another section of the worm from the tunnel below. The struggle can last only a few seconds, yet it involves two bodies using very different kinds of leverage. An earthworm moves by shortening and lengthening its body in waves. Circular muscles make one section thinner and longer. Long muscles then pull that section shorter again. These repeated changes carry the animal through its burrow. Tiny bristles called setae project from many of the worm's body segments. The bristles are so small that they are difficult to see without magnification. Pressed against the walls of a tunnel, they give the worm grip. A worm held by the bill may still have much of its body anchored beneath the surface. Soil presses around it, the setae catch against the burrow, and the contracting muscles increase resistance. The robin must overcome that friction without losing its grip. Its narrow bill can close firmly around the soft body. Strong legs keep the bird from being pulled forward. A backward lean turns much of the robin's body weight into useful force. That same motion is easier on wet ground than on dry, compacted soil. Rainwater fills tiny spaces between soil particles and softens the upper layer. Moist earth gives way more easily around a moving worm and around the robin's bill. Earthworms also tend to remain closer to the surface when conditions are damp enough to protect their skin. They breathe through that skin, which must stay moist for oxygen to pass through it. Dry weather pushes many worms deeper, where the soil holds more water. A morning after rain may therefore bring prey within a few centimeters of the grass. Compacted ground changes the picture. Soil packed hard by heavy foot traffic, vehicles, or long dry periods becomes more difficult to enter. Worms may remain deeper, and the robin has fewer soft openings where its bill can reach. Grass height matters as well. Short vegetation gives the bird room to run and allows small movements at the surface to remain visible. Tall stems slow the bird's path and hide the exact point where prey has disturbed the ground. This helps explain why robins are so easy to watch on lawns, golf courses, playing fields, and roadside grass. People often see the hunt because mowing has opened the view. The same behavior can happen in meadows, forest edges, gardens, and damp leaf litter, though branches or plants may hide it. Earthworms form only part of the robin's warm season diet. Beetles and their larvae are taken from soil and vegetation. Caterpillars provide soft food that can be swallowed quickly or carried to chicks. Grasshoppers, spiders, snails, and other small animals are also eaten. Near streams or ponds, robins may collect aquatic insects after the adults emerge from the water. Some observations and controlled studies have recorded feeding rates close to 20 earthworms in an hour. That figure describes a productive period rather than a fixed daily pace. Success changes with rain, temperature, grass height, soil hardness, and the number of active prey nearby. A cool, damp morning can provide many easy chances. A hot afternoon on dry ground may offer very few. Taken together, these conditions turn a simple lawn into the upper surface of a busy underground system. Worms open tunnels and consume decaying material. Beetle larvae feed among roots. Snails move through damp cover, while spiders wait for smaller prey. The robin works along the roof of this hidden community, using every small disturbance that reaches the surface. Its success depends on what the soil permits that day. As summer passes, that permission begins to change. Ground can harden, insects become less active, and cold weather eventually closes many of the easiest feeding routes. The robin remains flexible by shifting toward food growing above the soil, where fruit can support the bird after worms become harder to reach. Cold weather changes the robin's food supply before it changes the bird's location. Through spring and much of summer, earthworms and insects provide a large share of the diet. These foods are especially valuable while chicks are growing. A caterpillar or beetle larva contains concentrated protein, which supplies the building material for muscle, skin, organs, and feathers. Young birds developing inside a nest need that steady supply. Adults also use animal prey to repair tissue and maintain the muscles required for flight. As the season advances, the ground becomes less dependable. Dry soil hardens around worm tunnels. Cooler temperatures reduce insect activity. Later, frost can seal the surface and make probing difficult. Snow may cover the soil completely. At the same time, a new food supply is ripening above the bird. Chokecherries darken on branches during late summer. Hawthorn trees produce clusters of red fruit. Dogwoods carry berries that may be white, blue, or bright red, depending on the species. Sumac holds dense groups of small reddish fruits through autumn and often well into winter. Junipers produce blue, berry-like cones with fleshy outer tissue. Robins move into shrubs, woodland edges, orchards, and fruiting trees to use these seasonal crops. Their feeding posture changes with the menu. A bird that spent the morning running across short grass may later balance on a thin branch. The bill closes around a small fruit, and the robin often swallows it whole. Several fruits may disappear in less than a minute before the bird moves deeper into the plant. Fruit supplies large amounts of carbohydrate. The digestive system can break those sugars down quickly and release energy for movement and body heat. Some of that energy can also be stored as fat. This matters during cold nights and long flights, when a small bird may go for hours without feeding. Invertebrates and fruit therefore serve different needs. Animal prey supports rapid growth and tissue repair. Fruit provides accessible fuel when underground food becomes harder to reach. The balance shifts with weather, age, breeding demands, and the condition of the landscape. Even within a single day, robins may adjust what they eat. Earthworms are often taken more heavily during the morning when soil is cool and damp. Fruit may become more important later, especially when the surface dries and worms retreat deeper underground. A robin can therefore change its feeding strategy over a few hours without leaving the same neighborhood. The fruit supply also changes how far the bird must travel. Worms may be scattered across an entire lawn. A hawthorn or crabapple can hold hundreds or thousands of fruits in one small area. Several robins may gather in the same tree and feed rapidly. Once the crop is reduced, the birds move toward another patch. This creates a pattern of short journeys between temporary food sources. By winter, many robins leave open lawns and spend more time in moist woods, containing berry-producing trees and shrubs. The birds may still be living only a few kilometers from places where they were easy to see in summer. Their new habitat simply hides them more effectively. Fruit feeding also connects the robin with the plants producing the crop. Many small seeds pass through the digestive system without being destroyed. They leave the bird later in a different location, surrounded by waste that can add nutrients to the soil. A seed swallowed from one shrub may be carried across a field, along a forest edge, or into a clearing. The robin gains energy, while the plant gains a chance to spread beyond the shadow of its parent. Ripe fruit can occasionally remain on a branch long enough for yeast to ferment some of its sugars. A robin eating a large amount of fermented fruit may briefly lose coordination. These events are uncommon and depend on weather, fruit condition, and the amount consumed. Most fruit feeding produces the ordinary work of winter survival, The bird follows what is available, moving from soil to branch and from one fruiting patch to another. These changes begin before true migration and sometimes replace it. A robin able to find enough berries may remain much farther north than expected. As winter loosens and daylight increases, animal prey becomes available again. The returning food supply helps prepare the body for breeding. Soon, the most noticeable change is heard before sunrise, when scattered whistles begin forming a repeated song. As spring light returns earlier each morning, the robin's body begins responding long before sunrise. Lengthening days affect hormone levels linked with breeding. Food is becoming easier to find. Winter flocks are loosening, and males begin singing from exposed branches, rooftops, and the tops of small trees. The full song is different from the short sounds robins use during ordinary movement. A typical song string contains about 10 clear whistles. Several basic syllables are repeated in changing order, with the notes rising and falling in pitch. People sometimes remember the rhythm with phrases such as "cheerily cheer up," though each male has his own collection of sounds and arrangements. The song may last only a few seconds before a pause. Another string follows from the same perch or from a nearby tree. Robins also produce quieter contact notes while moving through vegetation or staying aware of other birds nearby. A sharp alarm call warns of a cat, hawk, crow, or person approaching a nest. Rising chuckling sounds often appear during agitation. A female protecting eggs or chicks may snap her bill together, creating a dry clacking noise during a close confrontation. These sounds carry different kinds of information. The longer musical song belongs mainly to the breeding season and is produced mostly by males. Repeated singing tells nearby females that a male is present and active. It also informs other males that part of the landscape is already occupied. A warning delivered through sound can travel across several lawns or through a stand of open trees. That distance allows neighboring birds to adjust their movements before every disagreement becomes a physical chase. The song therefore helps divide space. One male may sing from a maple near a driveway, then move to a fence post at the edge of a garden. Later, he may use the roof of a shed or the highest branch of a spruce. The repeated perches create an audible outline around the area he is defending. Delivery changes near dawn. A robin often sings more rapidly during the early morning chorus, shortening the spaces between phrases. At that hour, the light may still be too weak for efficient hunting on the ground. Worm openings, moving insects, and small changes in grass are harder to see. The air is often cooler and calmer than it will be later in the day, allowing clear whistles to travel with less interference. Traffic, lawn equipment, and many daytime bird sounds have not yet filled the background. Communication can therefore become the most useful activity during those dim minutes. Natural light usually provides the clock. The gradual brightening before sunrise changes what scientists call twilight. Civil twilight begins when the sun remains below the horizon, but enough scattered light reaches the ground for many outdoor activities to become possible. Robins living under street lights and building lights can receive a different signal. A study published in 2006 examined dawn singing recorded during 2002 and 2003. Researchers compared birds living in places with different levels of artificial nighttime light. Robins in brighter locations frequently began singing during true night, before natural civil twilight had started. Birds at darker sites tended to begin closer to the normal brightening of the sky. Later, comparative work has found that artificial light can advance robin dawn song by roughly 20 minutes under studied conditions. The exact amount changes with location, season, cloud cover, and the strength of nearby lighting. Earlier singing is therefore a measurable response. Its complete effect on the bird is harder to calculate. An early start could provide extra time to advertise a territory. It may also increase energy use or alter normal rest. Results can differ among habitats and individuals, so the shift does not carry one simple outcome in every setting. What remains clear is the mechanism. Light reaches the eyes and helps adjust the robin's internal daily clock. That clock influences when the bird becomes active. Breeding hormones and social conditions then shape how much it sings and how strongly it responds to neighbors. The sound moving through the dim air is carrying information about place, readiness, and competition. By following one male from perch to perch, the boundary becomes easier to hear. Inside that loose border must be feeding ground, protective cover, and a secure place where a nest can hold through wind and rain. Those useful features must fit together within one workable piece of land. A male robin begins shaping that space through repeated song. He may sing from the top of a maple, cross to a roof edge, and later use a fence post near the far side of the property. Each perch sends his voice across a slightly different part of the area. Neighboring males answer from their own positions. When one bird moves too far across an established boundary, the response may shift from singing to a direct approach. The resident male can lower his body, raise and spread his tail, or shake his wings. His white-streaked throat may expand as he faces the intruder. A short chase often carries both birds through several trees before the newcomer turns away. These encounters gradually create a territory. Its shape follows the land, rather than forming a neat circle. A row of dense shrubs may create one edge. A road, building, stream, or neighboring pair can shape another. The most valuable areas often combine several resources within a short flying distance. Low grass or bare ground provides places to collect earthworms and insects. Trees offer singing perches and cover from weather. A branch fork, ledge, or beam may support a nest. Nearby water can help with drinking, bathing, and gathering damp mud for construction. A wide lawn alone provides only part of what the pair needs. Food may be easy to reach, while the open space offers little shelter for eggs or young. A thick stand of trees can provide safer cover. Yet long trips to feeding ground increase the work required after the chicks hatch. Once a brood is growing, each extra journey costs time and energy. A parent carrying one worm to the nest must return to the ground and search again. Over a day filled with repeated feeding trips, even a modest distance begins to matter. The male's defense helps keep these connected resources available to the pair. Song warns neighboring males before they enter. Postures make the warning visible at closer range. Chasing becomes useful when sound and display fail to stop an approach. Territorial behavior can therefore reduce competition around food and nesting space, even though defending the boundary also consumes energy. Pair formation develops within this defended area. A male may display with his tail lifted and partly opened, while his wings tremble beside his body. The pale streaks on his throat become more noticeable when the feathers are raised. A female watching from a branch can assess the bird, the surrounding habitat, and the responses of nearby males. During a closer meeting, the pair may approach with open bills and briefly touch them. The movement is small, lasting only a moment, but it forms part of the coordination that replaces the looser social life of winter. American robins usually form seasonal breeding pairs. The same two birds may meet again in a later year, especially if both return to a familiar area, though the species should not be described as keeping one partner for life. Survival, migration, timing, and territory quality can all affect who pairs with whom in a given spring. The male remains easy to notice because he continues singing and responding to rivals. The female's work becomes quieter and more selective. She moves through shrubs, trees, and human structures, pausing at possible nest supports. Her choice will affect exposure to rain, access for predators, and the distance both adults must travel while feeding young. A suitable territory can contain many possible sites, yet only a few may offer the right balance. One branch may bend too easily. A ledge may receive direct afternoon heat. A sheltered beam may sit too close to a busy doorway. The breeding area has now narrowed from several lawns and trees to a decision measured in centimeters. The female must find a fork, ledge, beam, or covered surface capable of supporting a mud-lined cup as its eggs and chicks steadily add weight. The female begins by moving through the territory slowly, testing places that may support the weight to come. She slips into a shrub, pauses on a horizontal branch, and studies the fork where two limbs meet. A few minutes later, she may examine the flat top of a beam, the sheltered edge of a porch, or the metal rim of a gutter. The search can include many stops before construction begins. A useful site must support a cup roughly 15 to 20 centimeters across once it is finished. That cup will later hold several eggs, the body of an incubating female, and a brood of chicks growing heavier each day. The first requirement is a firm base. A robin often chooses one or more horizontal branches where the nest can rest against a trunk or sit inside a stable fork. Branches beneath dense leaves are common choices because the foliage breaks up the nest's outline when seen from above. Many nests are placed in the lower half of a tree where the female can reach them quickly from nearby feeding ground. Some appear much higher, close to the crown. Height alone provides no guarantee of safety. A low nest may be hidden inside thick leaves, while an exposed nest high in a tree can remain visible to crows or climbing squirrels. The female must balance concealment with access. Dense vegetation can hide the eggs from a passing predator. It can also make each landing more difficult, especially when the parents begin arriving many times an hour with food. A clear route into the nest saves time and reduces collisions with leaves and branches. Too much open space creates a different risk by leaving the cup easy to see. Human structures often reproduce the shape of a useful branch support. The top of an outdoor light may offer a level surface beneath a roof. An eave can block direct rain. A porch ledge or wooden beam may provide a stable corner where the nest cannot roll or slide. Robins also use gutters, bridges, window ledges, and parts of farm buildings. These sites can remain dry during storms, though they place the birds close to doors, people, vehicles, pets, and nighttime lights. A light fixture may appear sheltered in early spring, then grow warm when switched on after dark. A quiet beam can become busy when a garage or porch begins receiving daily use. The female cannot predict every disturbance, yet her repeated inspections help reveal some of the immediate risks. Regional landscapes produce less familiar choices. In parts of western prairie country, Robins may nest in low thickets or even on the ground when trees are scarce. A nest beside grass or sagebrush faces different predators and receives less protection from rain. Across Alaska, robins sometimes use buildings and natural cliff ledges. A shallow rock shelf can function much like the horizontal branch of a tree, especially when an overhang shields it from falling water. These varied sites show how the bird responds to structure rather than searching for one exact species of tree. The support must remain steady. Some shelter from weather helps. Nearby cover should reduce exposure without blocking the adult's path. Food also needs to be close enough for repeated trips after hatching. An open cup carries all of its contents above the surrounding surface. There is no cavity wall protecting the eggs from wind or helping hold the nest in place. A narrow branch that bends in calm weather may swing sharply during a storm. Rainwater can collect around a poorly drained ledge. Direct afternoon sun can raise temperatures inside an exposed cup. A location that appears secure for a few minutes must continue working through incubation and the rapid growth of the young. The decision therefore connects several weeks of biology to a space only a few centimeters wide. Once the female settles on a location, the bare fork or ledge still holds nothing. Its shape can support a nest, but the cup itself must be built from loose grass, fine roots, and wet soil carried there one small load at a time. The first load may be a few strands of dead grass held crosswise in the female's bill. She places them against the chosen branch fork or ledge, then leaves to gather more. Early pieces can look loose and untidy. A rootlet slips beneath a twig. A coarse stem catches against bark. With each return, the materials begin locking together through friction and pressure. The female performs nearly all of the construction. She collects dry grass, small twigs, thin roots, moss, and occasional feathers. Robins living close to people may also carry scraps of paper or string-like plant fibers, though natural materials usually form most of the structure. Each piece must be light enough to transport in the bill and flexible enough to bend around the growing cup. The nest develops from the inside outward. Once the first framework can support her weight, the female settles into its center. She turns her body and pushes against the walls. Her breast presses downward while her feet adjust loose stems beneath her. The wrist area of one wing helps force material outward and upward. Bird wings contain joints that correspond roughly to the shoulder, elbow, and wrist of a human arm. The robin uses that folded wrist area like a shaping tool, pressing the wall into a curve around her body. Repeated turning gradually creates a cup with dimensions suited to an adult robin. Her body serves as the mold, so the inner space is wide enough for incubation without becoming unnecessarily large. The outer framework alone would remain too flexible for the weight of eggs and growing chicks. Mud provides the reinforcement. The female searches damp ground for soft soil that can be carried in small mouthfuls. Fresh worm castings are especially useful. A worm casting is soil that has passed through an earthworm and been deposited at the surface. It is usually fine, moist, and easier to collect than hard ground. The robin works this wet material into the plant fibers. Mud fills gaps between stems and surrounds parts of the framework. As the water evaporates, the soil becomes firmer. The hardened layer helps stop individual pieces from shifting apart when the nest moves in wind or when the female repeatedly lands on its rim. Plant fibers remain useful because they can bend slightly without snapping. The mud limits movement and spreads pressure through the wall. Together, the two materials form a composite structure, meaning a structure built from materials with different strengths. Human builders use the same broad principle when they place steel inside concrete or mix fibers into plaster. The robin reaches a similar result with grass and wet earth. Before eggs are laid, the female adds a final lining of fine, dry grass. This layer creates a smoother surface and keeps the eggs from resting directly against hardened soil. It can also reduce contact with rough twigs or small cracks in the mud. A completed nest is usually about 15 to 20 centimeters across. Its height commonly falls between 8 and 15 centimeters. The exact size changes with the support beneath it and the materials available nearby. Mud makes the cup stronger, though it also makes it heavier. A nest built on a weak branch may sag as the lining. Eggs, female, and chicks add weight. Drying time matters as well. Warm air can help the mud harden between construction trips. Heavy rain may soften an unfinished wall, wash away exposed soil, or delay the female's progress. A roof edge or dense leaves can reduce this risk, which helps explain why shelter influenced the earlier choice of location. Even after drying, the cup retains some thermal mass. Thermal mass describes a material's ability to absorb heat and release it gradually. The mud layer may slow sudden temperature changes inside the nest, though its main visible value is structural strength. After many short flights, the rough outer wall and smooth inner lining are complete. The female settles into the cup once more, turns against its finished curve, and leaves the dry grass empty. Soon that lining will support an object made from calcium-rich shell, stored nutrients, and microscopic pores through which a developing bird can breathe. The first egg settles into the dry grass lining, smooth, cool, and only a few centimeters long. A typical robin clutch contains 3 to 5 eggs. Each one measures about 2.8 to 3 centimeters from end to end, and roughly 2.1 centimeters across. The shell usually appears sky blue or blue-green, with few or no spots. That familiar color covers a structure built to protect an embryo, while still allowing a careful exchange with the outside air. At the center lies the yolk. It contains stored fats, proteins, vitamins, and other nutrients that will help build the developing bird. The yolk also supplies much of the energy needed before hatching, when no food can enter from outside. Around it sits the albumen, often called the egg white. Albumin contains water and dissolved proteins. It cushions the embryo, provides material for growth, and helps prevent the contents from drying too quickly. Thin membranes surround these inner layers. They add protection and help control the movement of gases and moisture. The outer shell is made mainly from calcium carbonate, the same mineral found in limestone and many seashells. Its hard surface resists pressure from the incubating female and helps shield the contents from small impacts. A solid-looking shell still contains thousands of microscopic pores. These openings are far too small to see without magnification. Oxygen moves inward through them as the embryo grows. Carbon dioxide passes outward, along with a controlled amount of water vapor. The shell must slow water loss enough to prevent the contents from drying, while allowing the growing chick to breathe. Its blue-green color is added during the final stages of formation inside the female. The main pigment is called biliverdin. Biliverdin forms when heme is broken down in the body. Heme is part of hemoglobin, the substance in red blood cells that carries oxygen. As the shell moves through the female's reproductive tract, biliverdin is placed into the shell and across its surface. The amount deposited helps determine whether an egg appears pale blue, rich turquoise, or slightly green. Robin eggs are usually plain rather than heavily marked. This creates the smooth, even color now closely associated with the species. Scientists have proposed several possible uses for blue-green eggshells. Pigment may influence how light passes through the shell. It may reflect something about the female's physical condition while the egg is being formed. Some experiments have also tested whether males respond differently to clutches with stronger or weaker color. The results remain mixed. One study of American robins found no consistent overall link between egg color and how often males later brought food to the nest. A brighter blue egg, therefore, cannot be treated as a simple signal that always produces greater care. Color may have several effects at once, and some may depend on shade, nest cover, shell thickness, or the condition of the parents. The chemistry of the shell is easier to establish than the full evolutionary reason for its appearance. Once the clutch is complete, the female begins steady incubation. She settles over the eggs and transfers heat from her body through close contact. A patch of skin on the lower breast becomes especially useful for this work because warm blood flows near the surface. The eggs are kept within a narrow temperature range while development proceeds. The female leaves for short periods to feed, drink, or maintain her feathers, then returns before the clutch cools too far. Incubation usually lasts between 12 and 14 days. During that time, each egg functions as a partly sealed life support system. It holds nearly all the water and building material the embryo will receive before hatching. The pores continue exchanging gases. The shell protects the contents while gradually losing some moisture. Calcium from the shell can also contribute to the developing skeleton within. From the outside, the clutch may seem unchanged for many days. Inside, cells divide, organs begin forming, and blood vessels spread beneath the shell. The female repeatedly looks down, turns the eggs, and settles them beneath her again. Their shared blue color gives the clutch a familiar pattern. That pattern can make a new arrival stand out clearly, especially when the extra egg carries a different shade, size, or set of markings from the ones she laid herself. A female returning to the nest may find that the smooth blue pattern has changed. Among her own eggs sits one with a pale background, brown speckles, or a shape that does not quite match the rest. It may have been left by a brown-headed cowbird during a brief absence. Cowbirds use a reproductive strategy called obligate brood parasitism. Obligate means the behavior is required for the species' normal reproduction. The female cowbird does not build a nest or raise her own chicks. She places an egg in the nest of another bird and leaves the work of incubation and feeding to the host parents. This strategy developed alongside the cowbird's earlier life on North American grasslands. The birds once followed roaming herds of bison, feeding on insects disturbed by hooves. Constant movement may have favored females that could place eggs in nests scattered across the landscape, rather than remain at one nest for several weeks. Today, cowbirds use the nests of more than 200 species. A foreign egg can create serious costs for the host family. Cowbird eggs often develop quickly. The chick may hatch early and grow rapidly, giving it an advantage when food arrives. Its wide open mouth competes with the robin chicks beside it. Every caterpillar or earthworm delivered to the cowbird is food unavailable to one of the host's own young. Crowding also becomes important inside a cup only several centimeters deep. A larger chick can occupy the most useful feeding position and press smaller nestlings toward the edges. American robins respond strongly to this threat. In experiments using real cowbird eggs or carefully made models, robins have rejected the foreign egg in more than 90% of cases. That rate is unusually high compared with many North American songbirds. Some species accept cowbird eggs even when the markings look quite different from their own. Robins inspect the clutch and compare several visible features. Color carries useful information because their normal eggs are usually plain blue or blue-green. Brown spots create an obvious contrast. Size and shape can also influence the response. A cowbird egg is often smaller and more rounded than a robin egg. The female may turn her head from side to side while viewing the clutch from different angles. After deciding that an egg does not belong, she commonly grips it with her bill. The shell is carried away from the nest and dropped. This decision has to remain carefully controlled. Accepting a parasite can reduce the survival of the robin's young. Removing the wrong egg destroys part of her own clutch. The bird must respond strongly enough to detect a foreign object, while avoiding mistakes when her own eggs vary slightly in shade or size. Scientists describe this as a signal detection problem. The robin receives incomplete information and must choose where to place the boundary between acceptable and suspicious. The way she uses her eyes may affect that judgment. Bird eyes send much of their visual information to the opposite side of the brain. As a result, viewing an object mainly with the left eye or right eye can engage the two sides differently. In one study, robins with a stronger preference for using one eye while inspecting eggs were more likely to reject difficult foreign models. This pattern does not work like human right-handedness. It suggests that the two visual pathways may contribute differently when the bird compares shapes, markings, and colors. Experience can also shift the decision boundary. A study published in 2023 first exposed female robins to either cowbird-like model eggs or models that closely resembled their own. The following day, researchers placed a difficult deep blue model into the nest. Females that had recently encountered a clear cowbird-like egg were nearly twice as likely to reject the unusual blue model. The earlier encounter had made them more cautious. This learning does not require the robin to form a human-style explanation of brood parasitism. Experience refines a practical rule. After seeing a strongly foreign egg, the bird temporarily treats smaller differences with greater suspicion. The nest has become a place of visual inspection, as well as warmth and shelter. Once the clutch remains intact, its most important changes move beyond the female's view. Beneath each blue shell, cells are dividing, blood vessels are spreading, and the shape of a young robin is forming in less than 2 weeks. Within the accepted egg, development begins as a small disc of cells resting on the surface of the yolk. At first, the cells look almost alike. As they divide, some begin taking on different jobs. Certain groups will form the nervous system. Others will become muscle, skin, blood, or the lining of internal organs. The flat disc folds and bends as the early body takes shape. A head region appears at one end. The beginnings of the spine run along the center. Tiny buds mark where the wings and legs will grow. These changes happen quickly because the robin has only about 12 to 14 days of incubation before hatching. A human pregnancy lasts close to 40 weeks. A robin embryo completes its protected growth in less than 2. The yolk beneath it serves as a large store of energy and raw material. Its fats provide concentrated fuel. Proteins and other nutrients supply material for building tissue. The embryo connects to this supply through blood vessels spreading across special membranes around the yolk. These membranes remain outside the embryo's body while supporting its growth. They absorb nutrients and carry them toward the developing organs. Another network of blood vessels spreads beneath the shell. Oxygen from the outside air passes through microscopic pores and enters these vessels. Carbon dioxide moves in the opposite direction and leaves the egg. Water vapor also escapes slowly. This controlled water loss helps create an airspace near the broad end of the egg, which the chick will use shortly before hatching. The shell must allow enough gas exchange for a growing animal, while keeping most of the water inside. A shell with too few working pores would limit oxygen. Excessive water loss could dry the contents before development was complete. The albumin surrounding the yolk helps maintain that balance. Albumin is the clear egg white seen in a kitchen egg. It contains mostly water along with dissolved proteins. Inside the robin egg, it cushions the embryo and provides additional material for growth. Its texture also helps slow the movement of the yolk during small shifts in the nest. The shell contributes more than protection. It is built largely from calcium carbonate. As the embryo's skeleton begins to harden, some calcium can be drawn from the inner surface of the shell. A material that begins as armor gradually helps construct bones. The female controls the conditions around this entire system. Warm skin on her lower breast rests close to the eggs and transfers body heat through the shells. Stable warmth keeps chemical reactions and cell division moving at a suitable pace. Cooling slows development. Excessive heat can damage growing tissues. The female therefore adjusts her position, settles the eggs beneath her body, and changes how closely she covers them as weather conditions shift. She also turns the eggs regularly. Turning moves the embryo and its supporting membranes relative to gravity. This helps prevent delicate tissues from remaining pressed against one side for too long. It also supports normal growth of the membranes that handle breathing and nutrition. The movement may be small, produced by the female shifting an egg with her bill or feet, yet it affects the organization inside. Incubation still requires brief absences. The female must leave to feed, drink, and maintain her feathers. During those trips, the eggs begin losing heat to the surrounding air. A short cooling period can be tolerated. Her return restores the stable temperature needed for continued development. The balance changes with rain, wind, shade, and the number of eggs beneath her. Near the end of incubation, the chick occupies most of the available space. Its heartbeat is established. The beak has formed. Feathers have begun developing beneath the skin, and the remaining yolk is being drawn toward the body. Soon the chick breaks into the airspace and begins using its lungs. It then works against the shell with a small hard point on the beak called an egg tooth. Hatching leaves behind a very young bird. The chick is mostly naked, with only sparse whitish down. Its eyes remain closed or only partly open. Movement is weak, and it cannot hold its body temperature steady without the female's warmth. Embryonic growth is complete enough for the shell to open, while independence remains far away. The egg carried its own supply of water, oxygen pathways, minerals, and stored food. Once that shell breaks, every new meal and much of the needed warmth must begin arriving from outside, delivered again and again by the parents. The first hatchling lies low against the lining, its skin visible beneath a thin covering of pale down. Its eyes remain closed, and its neck can support the head for only a few moments. Warmth still comes mainly from the female, who settles over the brood and shields the small bodies from cool air. Both parents now begin carrying food into the nest. A robin may arrive with part of an earthworm hanging from its bill, then divide the prey among several open mouths. Caterpillars, beetle larvae, grasshoppers, and other soft invertebrates also appear. These animals contain the protein needed to build new tissue at remarkable speed. Protein is made from smaller units called amino acids. The chicks use those units to assemble muscle fibers, enzymes, skin, and the growing structures inside their feathers. Fats provide concentrated energy. Minerals support the hardening of bones, while water carried inside prey helps maintain circulation and digestion. A meal gathered from one patch of damp soil may become part of a wing muscle only hours later. The parents repeat this transfer throughout the day. They search across the territory, return to the nest, place food into a waiting mouth, and leave again. The pace depends on weather, prey supply, brood size, and the age of the chicks. Cool rain can reduce insect activity and make each feeding trip harder. Warm, damp ground may bring worms close to the surface and shorten the time between deliveries. During the earliest days, the chicks respond mainly to movement and vibration. A landing adult shakes the nest slightly. Several heads rise, necks stretch upward, and brightly colored mouths open. The inside of each mouth forms a clear feeding target in the dim cup. Begging calls become stronger as the chicks grow. A bird positioned near the center or closest to an arriving parent may receive food first, though repeated visits allow meals to reach different members of the brood. Competition remains intense because each chick is growing on a narrow schedule. Within a few days, the eyes begin to open. Neck muscles strengthen, allowing the head to remain upright for longer periods. The body becomes more coordinated as nerves and muscles begin working together. Small, dark points soon appear beneath the skin. These are developing feathers known as pin feathers. Each pin feather grows inside a protective sheath, a thin covering that surrounds the tightly folded feather. As growth continues, the sheath breaks apart. The feather opens into a central shaft with flat veins extending from either side. Those veins create the broad surface needed to trap air during flight. Feathers spread across the wings, back, and tail, while softer body feathers improve insulation. The chicks slowly gain the ability to hold their own temperature. The female can then spend less time brooding and more time collecting food. Space inside the nest becomes tighter each day. A cup that once held several small, nearly naked hatchlings now contains growing wings, longer legs, and emerging tails. Waste must be managed just as carefully as food. After feeding, a nestling may produce a fecal sac. This is a small package of waste enclosed in a thin membrane. The adult grips it in the bill and carries it away from the nest. Removing these sacs keeps the lining cleaner and reduces the buildup of moisture and microbes. It may also make the nest less noticeable by limiting odor and visible waste around the rim. The entire nestling period lasts only about 2 weeks. Some young leave close to 13 days after hatching. Others remain until around 14 to 16 days, depending on development and conditions. By then, the spotted juvenile feathers are becoming visible. The eyes are fully open, and the young can stand against the inner wall. Their flight muscles and wing feathers are still unfinished. Balance remains uncertain. Landings have not yet been practiced. Even so, the nest is reaching its limit. 4 nearly grown robins can press shoulder to shoulder inside a cup only several centimeters deep. Their movements shake the rim, and their begging calls become easier for predators to locate. The shelter that protected them during their weakest days is becoming a crowded and increasingly visible place. Soon, survival will depend on leaving that shared cup before flight has been fully mastered. One young robin reaches the rim, grips it with oversized feet, and drops into the vegetation below. The journey may include a short flutter, an awkward landing, or a final hop onto the ground. This usually happens when the bird is roughly 13 to 16 days old. At that age, it is called a fledgling. A fledgling has left the nest while still depending on its parents for food, guidance, and protection. Its breast carries the dark spots of juvenile plumage. The tail remains noticeably short because the feathers are still growing. Its wings can produce lift, though steering and landing require practice. A young robin may cross a few meters with rapid, uneven wing beats, then settle low inside a shrub. It may also spend part of the day hopping through grass, crouching beneath leaves, or climbing upward along angled branches. These movements can look uncertain because the bird is learning how its body responds outside the nest. The toes must grip surfaces of different widths. The wings must adjust to wind and nearby obstacles. Tail feathers gradually improve balance as they lengthen. A landing that begins accurately can still end with the fledgling sliding sideways through the leaves. Early weakness in flight is therefore a normal part of development. Leaving at this stage also changes how danger is distributed. Several large chicks packed inside one cup create a concentrated target. Their begging calls carry from the nest. Movement shakes the leaves around them, and repeated feeding visits reveal the location to watchful predators. Once the brood spreads through nearby vegetation, each young bird occupies a different hiding place. A predator discovering one fledgling is less likely to find the entire family during the same visit. The adults remain close. A young robin gives quiet calls that help its parents locate it among grass, shrubs, and low branches. Food deliveries continue as the fledgling's position changes through the day. An adult may arrive with an earthworm. Pause while the young bird calls, then move toward the sound. The parent places the meal into the open bill and leaves to search again. During this period, the male often takes a large share of caring for the fledged brood. The female may begin inspecting another nest site or collecting material for a new cup. This overlap allows one breeding attempt to continue while another begins. Life outside the nest exposes the young to a wider group of predators. Crows and blue jays may take eggs, nestlings, or recently fledged birds. Common grackles can raid open nests. Squirrels climb through branches and may reach eggs or chicks. Snakes can enter shrubs or trees without creating much noise. Hawks hunt older fledglings. Once movement carries them into open spaces. Free-ranging domestic cats create a serious ground-level danger because a young robin may freeze or hide rather than escape with strong flight. The risk changes with height and age. A chick inside the nest depends on concealment and parental alarm calls. A fledgling on the ground gains mobility but remains slow. After several days of practice, stronger flight opens roots into taller trees and across wider gaps. Human observers often encounter robins during this vulnerable middle stage. A fully feathered young bird sitting quietly on the ground can appear abandoned. Its parents may be feeding another member of the brood or waiting for people to move away before approaching. The adult birds usually remain within hearing distance, even when they cannot be seen. A fledgling should generally be left where it is, unless it has a visible injury or faces an immediate danger such as traffic. Moving it a short distance into nearby cover may be appropriate when the exact spot is unsafe, provided it remains close enough for the parents to find. A sparsely feathered nestling belongs to an earlier stage. That bird may have fallen before it was ready and can sometimes be returned to a nearby nest. Parents do not abandon a young bird merely because a person has touched it. Robins rely far more on sight and sound than on detecting human scent. Over the following days, the fledgling's wings strengthen, the tail grows, and each landing becomes more controlled. It begins watching adults search for prey and gradually attempts its own short runs across the ground. The first brood is still receiving meals, while the breeding season continues around it. Within the same territory, fresh grass and mud may already be gathering into another nest, preparing the pair for a new clutch and another rapid cycle of growth. While the male continues carrying food to the spotted fledglings, the female may already be shaping another nest nearby. The first young still call from shrubs and low branches as fresh grass, roots, and mud begin forming a second cup. American robins commonly attempt between 1 and 3 broods during a single breeding season. The exact number depends on latitude, weather, food, and the success of earlier nests. A pair breeding in the southern United States may have more time for repeated attempts than birds arriving late in Alaska or northern Canada. Nest building, egg laying, incubation, and chick growth must all fit within the warmer part of the year. Overlapping parental duties help compress that schedule. The male often feeds fledglings after they leave the nest. Meanwhile, the female selects another support, builds the cup, and begins producing a new clutch. Once incubation starts, the male may divide his time between guarding the area and tending the older young. This fast rhythm reflects the difficult arithmetic of robin survival. Only about 40% of nests successfully produce fledged young. Many breeding attempts end before any chick leaves the cup. Crows, jays, squirrels, snakes, and other predators can discover eggs or nestlings. A violent storm may tear a nest from its support. Heavy rain can chill exposed young, while intense sun may overheat a poorly shaded cup. Thin branches sometimes break as the brood gains weight. Food shortages can slow growth, and repeated disturbance near a porch or doorway may cause the adults to abandon an early attempt. Losing one nest does not always end the season. A female may begin rebuilding within the same territory, using a different branch or structure. The pair has already located feeding ground and learned the positions of nearby rivals. Starting again in familiar surroundings can be quicker than searching for an entirely new area. Success at the nest produces only the beginning of a young robin's survival test. Roughly 1/4 of fledglings live until November. During those first months, they must learn to find food, recognize alarm calls, escape predators, and move through unfamiliar vegetation. Young birds also grow new feathers and prepare for cold weather or migration. A poorly timed storm can arrive while flight skills are still developing. Domestic cats create danger near lawns and shrubs, while hawks become a greater threat once the young spend more time in open air. Robins that survive this early period still face substantial yearly losses. Among birds alive after the most vulnerable juvenile months, only about half survive from one year to the next. Winter cold, collisions, predators, disease, and food shortages continue removing individuals from the population. These losses explain why several eggs and repeated broods are common. The strategy spreads reproductive effort across more than one attempt. A failed first nest can be followed by another clutch. Young from an early brood may face different weather than those fledging later. Each new attempt creates another opportunity for at least some offspring to enter the autumn population. A few robins survive for many years. The oldest recorded American robin reached 13 years and 11 months. That record describes an exceptional bird rather than an ordinary life. Across the population, turnover occurs in roughly 6 years. Population turnover means that most of the individuals present at the beginning of that span have been replaced by younger birds by the end. A neighborhood may continue holding robins every spring, even though many of the birds themselves have changed. Abundance can hide this constant replacement. Millions of robins live across North America, and their songs return reliably each year. Behind that dependable presence are many nests that fail, and many fledglings that do not reach their first winter. Repeated breeding keeps the population large enough to remain familiar. It also turns every successful adult into the survivor of several narrow stages, beginning inside a blue egg and continuing through the first months outside the nest. Much of this reproductive success now unfolds close to people. Mown grass can improve access to worms, and buildings provide nest supports. The same landscape also brings windows, nighttime lighting, chemicals, vehicles, and free-ranging cats. Human spaces offer robins useful opportunities while changing the risks included in every brood's difficult arithmetic. A neighborhood can offer a robin many of the features once found along natural forest edges. Mown grass creates an open surface where movement in the soil is easier to detect. Sprinklers and garden watering can keep the upper ground damp, bringing earthworms closer to the surface during dry weather. Street trees offer song perches while shrubs provide cover for young birds. Porches, gutters, beams, and window ledges can support nests where no suitable branch exists. Public parks are especially useful because they place open feeding ground beside mature trees and dense vegetation. These advantages help explain why robins have become so common in towns and cities across North America. The same places also contain hazards created by human activity. A bird flying between a lawn and a tree may strike a window that reflects open sky. Vehicles cross feeding areas and migration routes. Artificial light can shift the timing of morning song. Outdoor cats hunt near the ground, where fledglings spend their first days outside the nest. Repeated movement near a porch or doorway may disturb adults caring for eggs. Chemical exposure enters the robin's life through the soil itself. Products applied to lawns, gardens, trees, or nearby fields can reach insects and earthworms. A ground-feeding bird may therefore encounter a chemical without touching the place where it was originally sprayed. One of the best-known examples developed during the 1950s, when Dutch elm disease was spreading through North American cities and campuses. The disease is caused by fungi that block the water-carrying tissues inside elm trees. Elm bark beetles help move those fungi from one tree to another. Communities responded by spraying elms with persistent insecticides intended to kill the beetles. Persistent chemicals break down slowly, allowing residues to remain in the environment long after the original treatment. At Michigan State University, elm trees on a campus of about 185 acres were treated with DDT. The chemical settled on bark and leaves. When contaminated leaves fell, they became part of the litter beneath the trees. Earthworms pulled pieces of that material into the soil and consumed decaying plant matter. Chemical residues then remained inside their bodies. Robins arrived to feed on the worms. A single bird could swallow many contaminated prey during a morning of successful hunting. The exposure therefore moved through a trophic pathway. Trophic refers to feeding relationships between organisms. The pathway began with material on the trees, continued through fallen leaves and earthworms, and ended inside a predator feeding at the surface. Repeated meals could produce a much larger dose than one brief contact with the treated tree. Rachel Carson described the Michigan State case in Silent Spring, published in 1962. Before the spraying program, the campus was estimated to support about 370 adult robins. In later springs, observers counted only 2 or 3 dozen. Reproduction also changed sharply. During 1954, every robin nest being monitored on the campus produced young. By 1957, observers reported finding only 1 young robin. Those figures came from 1 location and 1 historical program, yet they made the hidden route of contamination unusually clear. The robins did not need to be struck directly by a cloud of spray. The chemical remained in the local food web and reached them later through their prey. Carson also discussed separate campaigns involving aldrin and daldrin, 2 other powerful insecticides. Those chemicals were used in different places and circumstances, including treatments aimed at pests such as Japanese beetles. Their histories should remain separate from the DDT-based elm spraying at Michigan State, even though all of these cases revealed how persistent compounds could move beyond their intended targets. The broader lesson changed environmental science and public policy. A chemical released in one part of an ecosystem can travel through feeding relationships, sometimes becoming more concentrated in animals higher in the food chain. Robins remain useful signs of this process because they feed so directly from lawns and soil communities. Their tissues, eggs, survival, and breeding success can reveal contamination that remains difficult to see from the surface. Human landscapes have given robins feeding grounds and countless places to nest. They have also connected the birds to glass, lighting, domestic predators, and chemicals moving through the ground. By late summer, those breeding territories begin to loosen. The pairs that chase neighbors away from lawns now start joining the same feeding groups and gathering in shared places near dusk. As the last broods become independent, the robin's social world begins to change. The male sings less often, and the boundaries defended through spring become easier for other birds to cross. Young robins with spotted breasts move beyond the shrubs where their parents fed them. Several may appear together on one lawn, followed later by adults that would have chased one another away only a few months earlier. Territories were useful, while each pair needed reliable access to nest sites and nearby prey. By late summer, eggs and nestlings no longer organize most daily movement. Food begins shaping the birds into groups. Earthworms and insects are often spread across a lawn or beneath leaf litter. A robin searching for them may work alone because each small patch offers only a limited amount. Fruit grows in a different pattern. One dogwood can hold hundreds of berries. A large crab apple tree may carry thousands of small fruits across its branches. Hawthorn, sumac, and juniper also produce dense crops within a small area. Many birds can feed from the same plant before the supply is exhausted. Defending such a temporary resource would require frequent chases against every arriving robin. Sharing the crop and moving onward can use less energy. The flock may remain in one orchard or woodland edge for several days, then shift when the most accessible fruit is gone. Membership changes along the way. Some birds leave for another feeding area. New arrivals join after locating the group or following its movements. The gathering has no permanent border like the spring territory. Its shape follows the food. Nighttime behavior changes as well. During summer, females with active nests usually remain close to their eggs or young. Males may begin using communal roosts earlier, gathering with other robins in sheltered vegetation after their daytime duties are finished. Independent juveniles gradually join these nighttime groups. Adult females begin participating once their final nesting attempts have ended. A roost is a shared place where birds settle to rest. Dense trees, damp woodland, conifer stands, or thick shrubs can provide protection from wind and make it harder for a predator to approach unseen. The group may contain dozens of birds at first. Autumn gatherings can grow into flocks of hundreds, while some winter roosts become far larger. Several possible advantages come from joining others. Many eyes can detect a hawk, owl, or climbing predator sooner. When a threat enters the roost, one alarm call can alert birds hidden across a wide patch of vegetation. A large group also lowers the chance that one particular robin will be selected during an attack. The movements of flock members may provide clues about food. A bird leaving the roost in a certain direction may have found fruit there the previous day. Other robins can follow, although the exact way information spreads through each gathering remains difficult to measure. Roosting may also place many birds near suitable morning feeding routes. No single benefit needs to explain every flock. Weather, food supply, landscape, and predator pressure can change what the group provides from one place to another. The sound around the robins changes with this social shift. Spring territories were marked by clear songs delivered from separated perches. An autumn gathering produces softer contact notes and the movement of many wings through leaves. Near dusk, birds arrive in small waves. Some settle briefly before changing branches. Others call from deeper cover as later groups enter. The scene can grow active for a short period, then become quieter as darkness increases. The individual robin remains the same size and carries the same orange breast, yet its place in the population has changed. It no longer spends the evening as one member of a breeding pair guarding a small area. It has become one bird among many, using food patches and sleeping places that shift across the landscape. This loosening of territory makes longer movement possible. A flock can follow fruit between neighborhoods, cross into another county, or continue far beyond the region where it formed. The species name Migratorius now becomes visible in behavior, though the journeys ahead will vary greatly. Some robins will cross thousands of kilometers. Others will move only far enough to find the next sheltered woodlot and remain surprisingly close to home. The movement begins unevenly. One group leaves a feeding woodlot and continues south. Another travels only far enough to reach a valley with open water and fruiting shrubs. Some robins remain within the same region where they bred, even as lawns empty and snow begins covering the ground. This pattern is called partial migration. Within one species, certain individuals migrate long distances, while others make shorter movements or remain close to home. The decision is shaped by several influences working together. Inherited tendencies affect when a bird becomes restless and which direction it travels. Snow controls access to the soil. Berry crops determine whether enough food remains nearby. Age, body condition, weather, and earlier experience can also change the journey. A robin wintering in the north may avoid the energy cost and danger of a long flight. That choice carries the risk of deep snow, severe cold, or a failed fruit crop. A bird traveling south spends more energy during migration and enters unfamiliar places, though it may find softer ground and more dependable food. Both strategies can succeed during a favorable year. Both can become costly when conditions change. For a long time, range maps could show where robins were reported during each season. Those maps combine many observations across large areas. They could not reveal where one specific bird went after leaving its breeding ground. A study published in 2019 began filling in that missing detail. Researchers recovered stored location data from 7 American robins captured in 3 breeding populations in the United States. The birds carried small archival GPS devices. GPS stands for Global Positioning System. The device used signals from satellites to record locations during the year. Unlike a live transmitter, an archival tag stored the information inside itself. Researchers had to recapture the bird and retrieve the device before they could see its route. Only 7 complete tracks were recovered, so the study could not measure how common each strategy was across the entire species. Those 7 birds still revealed an extraordinary range of individual behavior. 4 were captured in Denali National Park and Preserve in Alaska. They bred within the same broad northern landscape, yet their winter destinations spread across much of the central United States. One spent the colder season in Texas. Others wintered in Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Montana. The longest separation between an Alaskan breeding site and a winter location was about 4,500 kilometers. That distance is greater than the width of many countries. A bird weighing roughly 80 grams had crossed forests, plains, mountain regions, and several climate zones before settling for winter. The eastern robins followed very different patterns. One captured near Amherst, Massachusetts, traveled to South Carolina. Its seasonal movement covered approximately 1,210 kilometers. That was a substantial migration, though much shorter than the longest route from Denali. 2 birds captured in Washington, D.C., barely left their home area. Both remained within about 6 kilometers of where they had been tagged throughout the year. Their seasonal change occurred through habitat and diet, rather than a continent-crossing flight. They could move away from open lawns, enter wooded areas with berries, and join communal roosts while staying inside the same urban region. These paths show why the word migration can hide several kinds of movement. A robin may cross thousands of kilometers between breeding and wintering grounds. Another may shift between nearby neighborhoods. A third can travel an intermediate distance that changes from one year to another. Regional history matters because northern populations face colder winters and longer periods of frozen ground. Local food can sometimes outweigh latitude. A northern bird with access to heavy fruit crops may remain farther north than expected, while a bird from a milder region may travel when nearby resources decline. This flexibility spreads risk across the population. A harsh winter in one area will not affect every robin in the same way. A poor berry crop may push local residents outward, while distant migrants encounter better conditions elsewhere. Two birds standing together on a summer lawn can therefore spend the winter more than 4,000 kilometers apart. Some robins that disappear truly have crossed much of the continent. Many others remain surprisingly close, gathering after dark inside wooded roosts whose size can overwhelm ordinary counting. When thousands leave together at dawn, their movement becomes large enough to appear on weather radar. Near evening, robins begin arriving at sheltered woodland from many directions. Small groups pass over fields, roads, and neighborhoods before dropping into dense trees. The chosen roost may sit inside a swampy forest, a stand of evergreens, or another place where thick vegetation blocks wind. At first, only scattered calls come from the branches. More birds arrive as daylight fades, and the woods gradually fill with movement. Communal roosts vary greatly in size. Some contain a few hundred robins. Large winter gatherings can hold tens of thousands, and recorded roosts have reached roughly 250,000 birds. Each individual still weighs close to 80 grams, yet their combined mass can amount to many tons of living animals gathered within one landscape. The roost is mainly a nighttime base. Around dawn, the birds leave in smaller groups and spread across the surrounding region. Some head toward crabapple trees in towns. Others search woodland edges for dogwood fruit, juniper berries, or the remaining clusters of sumac. A productive feeding site may lie many kilometers from the sleeping area. During research on a central Oklahoma roost, individual robins were observed traveling more than 50 kilometers during the day. They returned toward the shared woodland before darkness. This daily movement creates a wide network around the roost. The birds may feed across several counties while gathering into one concentrated population each night. Counting such a group from the ground is extremely difficult. Branches hide many of the birds, arrivals continue over time, and one part of the flock may be moving, while another has already settled. Weather radar offers a wider view. Radar works by sending pulses of radio energy into the atmosphere. When those pulses strike rain, snow, insects, or birds, part of the energy reflects back toward the instrument. The returning signal helps reveal the position and movement of whatever produced the reflection. A large flock leaving together near dawn can create an expanding shape on the radar display. The pattern may look like a ring growing outward from one point. As the robins spread into separate feeding groups, the signal becomes weaker and more scattered. Researchers can use the size, speed, and strength of the pattern to estimate when the birds departed, which directions they traveled, and approximately how many were present. One remarkable example was studied in central Oklahoma during the winter of 2010 to 2011. The roost began growing during November. More robins joined through December, and the population continued increasing into January. Radar-based estimates place the peak gathering at roughly 1.5 to 2 million birds. That number exceeds the human population of many large cities. The roost later declined in several stages as winter conditions changed. By early March, the gathering had dispersed. Food availability, weather, migration timing, and the approach of the breeding season probably all contributed to the breakup. A population that had spent winter concentrated within one region began separating into smaller groups and individual routes. Such dense gatherings also attract questions about disease. American robins play an important role in the ecology of West Nile virus. The virus moves between birds and mosquitoes, and some mosquito species feed on robins often enough to make them important hosts. A communal roost may appear likely to increase transmission because many possible hosts occupy one place. Field studies have produced a more complicated picture. Some research found no simple match between roost attendance and the location of infected mosquitoes. Other work found that the number of mosquito bites per robin could fall inside very large groups because each insect had so many birds available. Roosting may change where mosquitoes feed, without creating the same result in every habitat. Temperature, mosquito species, surrounding water, and bird density all affect the outcome. The roost, therefore, remains a social system with several possible benefits and costs. It may improve predator detection, provide sheltered sleeping conditions, or help birds locate food through the movements of others. Its full value probably changes from one winter and location to another. The greatest certainty comes from its physical scale. A bird first seen alone on a lawn can become one point inside a mass departure large enough for radar to detect from kilometers away. By early spring, the winter city begins emptying. Robins separate into migrating groups, return toward breeding areas, and once again divide the landscape into territories. The timing of that return depends strongly on snow and thaw, and over recent decades, that seasonal schedule has begun shifting in measurable ways. Northward movement begins as winter conditions loosen along the route. Snow retreats unevenly from fields, forests, river valleys, and mountain passes. Bare ground appears first on sunny slopes and around trees, opening small feeding areas where robins can search for insects and earthworms. A study published in 2020 examined records of robins moving toward Arctic and boreal breeding grounds. Boreal refers to the broad northern forest zone stretching across Canada and Alaska. The observations covered 25 years, from 1994 through 2018. Across that period, the timing of robin passage advanced by about 5 days per decade. Over the full record, the birds were moving roughly 12 days earlier than they had near the beginning. That change did not mean every individual arrived 12 days sooner. Migration varies among years, regions, and birds. The long record revealed a steady shift in the average timing of many movements. Researchers also needed to understand how a robin decides when to continue. Small GPS devices provided a closer view. 55 robins were tracked during the springs of 2016, 2017, and 2018. Their routes showed that snow conditions strongly influenced where they paused and when they reached their breeding areas. A robin approaching deep snow may stop in a valley where fruit, open water, or exposed soil remains available. When warmer weather melts the surface farther north, the bird can continue. The timing emerges from many local decisions made across hundreds or thousands of kilometers. This ability to adjust is called behavioral plasticity. Plasticity allows one animal to change its behavior in response to present conditions. The change can happen within a single lifetime, without waiting for many generations of genetic evolution. A robin can delay departure during a storm or remain longer at a useful feeding site. It can also move quickly when thawing ground opens a chain of new places to feed. Flexibility may help the species follow an earlier spring. The complete annual cycle still depends on several biological events lining up closely enough. Thawed soil must make prey reachable. Insects need to emerge while adults are feeding chicks. Shrubs and trees must provide secure nesting cover. Severe storms can still arrive after warm conditions have encouraged birds northward. Earlier arrival may offer access to a good territory. It can also place a bird ahead of its food if soil remains frozen or insect activity has not yet increased. The evidence shows that robins are adjusting their schedules. It does not prove that every future change will be matched successfully. Artificial light may alter the hour when morning song begins. Lawns and irrigation affect where ground prey can be found. Buildings supply nest supports while windows add collision risk. Persistent chemicals can travel from plants into soil animals and then into feeding birds. Climate now changes the larger seasonal timetable surrounding all of those local conditions. The robin makes these pressures visible because it remains so close to ordinary human life. A bird on a lawn may have spent winter within 6 kilometers of that place. Another may have returned from more than 4,000 kilometers away. Both can arrive with the same orange breast and begin responding to the same lengthening daylight. The male's whistles divide the neighborhood into breeding areas. A female tests branches and ledges, then shapes grass and mud around her body. Blue eggs hold water, nutrients, and growing embryos for less than 2 weeks. The young leave before their flight is polished, while the parents may already be preparing another brood. Later, those territories dissolve into fruit-feeding flocks. Some birds gather in wooded roosts containing hundreds of thousands of individuals. A few roosts have grown large enough for their dawn departures to appear on weather radar. All of that movement returns to one robin standing on short grass. It weighs little more than 80 grams. Its feet rest above a living soil filled with worms, roots, beetle larvae, and moisture moving between tiny spaces. The bird takes several quick steps. It stops and tilts its head. Its eyes inspect the surface while its ears may collect faint sounds from below. Daylight, temperature, hunger, breeding condition, remembered places, and the presence of nearby birds all shape what happens next. The pause appears simple from a distance. Inside that still moment are a continent's changing seasons, a body built for soil and air, and an annual journey repeatedly adjusted to the conditions arriving beneath its feet.